Hey everybody, Stephen Cook here. We are fast approaching the fourth Sunday of Advent 2019, and we're about to get on Sunday, Advent 4, this amazing prophecy from Isaiah of Immanuel in Isaiah chapter 7. I'd like to go back and look at a video that I did on this famous, amazing Isaiah and the richness and the complexity of the book and this Isaiah prophecy of Immanuel. I'd like to look at an interview I'm doing here with Professor Robert R. Wilson of Yale University. I think you will really enjoy getting some depth and scholarly perspective on the Immanuel prophecy since we're dealing with it Sunday, Advent 4. And I think you'll enjoy it. So sit back for a few minutes, take a look, and in case you turn this video off right now, let me wish you a wonderful and Merry Christmas 2019. In this first clip of the back and forth discussion that Bob Wilson and I are having, I've selected a portion where Bob and I are discussing the amazing, expansive quality of the Isaiah prophecies. A prophecy like the Immanuel prophecy in Isaiah 7 can't just be anchored and moored just to one ancient context. It has a forward-pointing quality, a prophetic quality that is capable of interpretation during Isaiah's initial life, but then again later in his ministry, and then further on out, even relevant for us today. Take a look.
A true prophecy once given is capable of being fulfilled over and over again. Yeah. And it was not exhausted in a single fulfillment. Yeah. And therefore, the tradition assumed, and the disciples assumed, and the prophet himself assumed, that one could continue to interpret these prophecies.
Yeah, I think that whole notion is such a powerful insight, and it was largely lost in modern scholarship. If you pick up most commentaries or most study Bibles, they will try to take Isaiah and divide it into parts and to locate each part in one specific time frame, one specific audience, one specific author, and capture it by the tail in that way, like most other biblical books are treated.
Now in this next little clip, Professor Wilson and I are beginning to talk specifically about the Immanuel prophecy in Isaiah 7 and how it's capable of more than one valence. It applies initially to the birth of a small baby in the 8th century, at the time of King Ahaz, and the significance of his name, but soon, some decades later, the valence attracts itself to a new situation, and it's not about a sign name of a little baby anymore. This prophecy has an expansive quality, and the Isaiah community understands prophecy differently than many other books of the Bible, and indeed differently than modernist, historically oriented, historicist exegesis.
I mean, originally Immanuel was a child who, this separate crisis of this coalition from the north would be over by the time he's old enough to eat curds and honey. Now, over 35 years later, Immanuel is being applied to a whole new crisis. It's not this...
And a whole new thing.
Now in this final little clip, I talk a little bit more specifically about the long-range trajectory that the expansive, vibrant witness of this Immanuel prophecy pushes it along as we look very closely at the details of Isaiah chapter 7 and 8. So let's dive in, look at Isaiah 7 and 8, and see how this prophecy takes on a life of its own, even beyond probably what Isaiah of Jerusalem initially was able to conceive himself in his own mind when he first spoke it to Ahaz. There is a little slip of the tongue when I'm talking about verse 10 of Isaiah chapter 8 at the end. I accidentally call it chapter 10, not verse 10. So you'll have to get beyond that blip.
These initial prophecies keep going with this vitality and life, and in some ways they become more clear as the community, eventually the second Isaiah community, reflects on them. Initially it's just a child who has a special name, but by verse 8 of chapter 8, this Immanuel seems to be somebody who has a land. The Assyrians are going to fill up the breadth of your land, O Immanuel. That awfully much sounds like Immanuel is a king who's presiding over a land. It gets to look more like a messianic figure, at least to some people at this point. And then, just a few verses later, at the end of chapter 10, you get the term, at least in Hebrew, Immanuel again. In many English translations, it just says God is with us, but in Hebrew, Immanuel.
It's the same thing.
A third reinterpretation or a third impact of an initial prophecy that just can't be tied down to its initial dating in 735.
And that will become the pattern that we're going to see in the rest of the material.